Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And Alan Singer.
Educator, historian, Dr. Alan Singer, our resident expert on any number of issues, and fellow journalists, Raymond Peterson, Robert Anthony, and myself. We're actually doing this session on the January 15th birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the birthday of my greatest hero of all time, my mother, Mavis Eloise Tait. And I know both of those individuals would not be happy at the state of our democracy or our attempted democracy in these here United States, or should I say, disunited states of America. And yeah, so on this actual Monday holiday, we're going to try to take a look at what the status of our democracy and I guess other democracies are these days based on what we've been seeing. This Monday actually is the start of the Iowa caucuses for the Republican attempt at selecting a candidate to be their presidential candidate on their ticket for 2024. And I don't know, guys, the fact that an insurrectionist, self-avowed autocrat is leading the Iowa caucuses. I don't know, Ray, who is the lead guy in Iowa right now?
I don't keep their names in my head. The Florida guy, what's his name?
No, the lead guy is not the Florida guy. The lead guy is the guy that makes me really worry about this democracy.
Right, that's right. I forgot about him. He's easy to forget. No, Trump obviously is still the lead. He's ahead by 30 points, I think, if not more. DeSantis is the closest second, and he's like 29, 30, I think.
I don't know what his numbers are, but Bob, is DeSantis now second, or Nikki Haley actually pushing DeSantis for second place?
Nikki Haley was, I guess, getting some good work done in Iowa, and DeSantis, that's not DeSantis territory, at least in this respect. But yeah, we have bad weather today in Iowa, and I hate to say it, but that by itself affects elections when people don't come out in affected areas, and so both DeSantis and Haley might actually. There's an outside chance they can do better than they expected to.
Alan,
I think it's like Trump is running 50%, and each of them is close to 25. I think they're both maneuvering to come in second, with the idea that when it goes to New Hampshire in the end of January, and then South Carolina in February, they could be in a better position. I mean, who knows? I think one of the things that was interesting about the campaign there is that DeSantis visited all 99 Iowa counties. Trump didn't, because he was busy with 91 indictments. But the other thing about Iowa is it's so unrepresentative of the United States. Basically, everybody's white, and there are more pigs in Iowa than people. So I don't think that's true in any other state of the United States.
That's a fact. If that's a fact that I never knew, but yeah, I don't even want to go down that road with that analogy. It might make me say something terrible.
But the thing about Iowa, we had the debates, right? Debate with the last one between DeSantis and Haley, and apparently the Trump town hall that happened at exactly the same time got much better ratings, I guess, and by itself Fox would outdraw other networks anyway, so that's part of it. But and I didn't know this until late in the cycle. Trump demanded, it was a requirement of the Trump campaign, that the town hall go right against the debate, And so, and Fox accepted that. And so I mean, we've dinged Fox forever for how they handle quote unquote journalism. And they sold out and took this town hall with softball questions on a day where the people, at least had the chance to hear from the two candidates two Republican candidates in Iowa.
So what does it say for the state of, quote, the attempted democracy in the United States of America, that the insurrectionist with 91 indictments against him can make a demand of a so-called journalistic organization about when he would be willing to sit down to talk to them? That's in direct conflict to two other individuals of his so-called party that are actually trying to debate the issues for the local population and the nation, and they yield to his demands. And what does it say that that same state that these other two people are running second and third, whichever order they're running second and third in, that the people of that state actually love this insurrectionist, avowed dictator to be more than any other candidate? What does that say? Historically, Alan, what does that say? Because this seems to be paralleling previous times of the 20th century that we talked about. When we talk about democracies in crisis, the United States is not the only democracy in crisis right now.
Well, one thing about Iowa, the other thing is Iowa has a very strong evangelical Christian movement and Christian nationalists, people who believe the United States should be declared a Christian nation. In 2016, Trump did not win Iowa. The Christian nationalist fundamentalist churches all came out heavy for Ted Cruz. So we're looking at this big shift within the United States from a evangelical Christian movement that was very leery of Donald Trump to an evangelical Christian movement that is very strongly supportive of him. And this is one of the things that is very, very scary, because this is a movement that is not pro-democracy. This is a movement that that is prepared to force their point of view, their beliefs on other people. So this is one of the things that's scary about what's taking place in Iowa.
So you got Christians who want a strong man because they think he will push their religious ideology along. Then you have other people who want a strong man because they think his bluster is going to make him and us as a country seem strong to the rest of the globe. Talk about that historical parallel in the 30s, because I just can't believe that a guy that got 91 indictments, that is an actual insurrectionist that at least one, probably two state courts have said is an insurrectionist who tried to negate this peaceful transfer of power, which should make him automatically ineligible to run again. But that's another issue we can discuss at another time. Talk to me about that parallel. Talk to us about that parallel.
Well, last weekend I was in San Francisco. It was the annual conference of the American Historical Association. And a number of the panels focused on this question. What is the nature of fascism? Is Trump in the United States moving towards fascism? I thought the better argument was one that presented what was called illiberal democracy.
Illiberal democracy?
Illiberal, not liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the differences between the United States today, Germany and Italy in the 30s, is they were in the midst of a Great Depression, unemployment, follow-up to World War I. Their countries were in states of crisis or in collapse. So both Mussolini and Hitler came to power through the electoral process, but they were committed to getting rid of the electoral process, arguing that only a strong man, only a dictatorship could right the ship. And that becomes fascism. Today, what we have are elected governments that don't believe in democratic rights. Hungary, Russia, you could even argue the same thing about Israel today, and Trump in the United States. So what you have are people who are running for office, elected to office, who are pledged to do away with the democratic principles that we associate with democracy. I mean, Trump has claimed that he would become a dictator, but only on day one, to block refugees he has described as vermin, and to eviscerate environmental regulation. Trump calls rioters convicted of crimes during the January 6th insurrection at the United States Capitol building. He calls them patriots who are being held as hostages. He pledges to issue pardons. He threatens to use the Justice Department to punish his political enemies, including Joseph Biden, the radical left, disloyal Republicans, the press, which he calls the enemy of the people, and secret Marxists someplace in government. He even evokes what's called the 1807 Insurrection Act, that in theory would permit him to use the American military and National Guard as police within the United States, claiming he wants to suppress civil disorder. I mean,
So this bit about the Guard and the Insurrectionist Act, wasn't it at one of those Iowa caucuses or meetings rather that he had where he talked about the fact that looters or rioters in any city in America, before they walked out the store, they'd be shot dead as they walked out. Is that one of his latest statements?
yeah, that's martial law.
So basically what he's invoking is strong men, dictatorship, rule of law, because I alone can make it work.
Yes.
Bob,
No,
recently,
no.
go ahead.
No, I was going to ask Alan, do you think that, and this is one of my thoughts, does ignorance play a big part in this? I mean, I don't want to declare a whole nation to have full of ignorant people, but we're at a point where a lot of people don't watch like a long form documentary analysis of a problem. They're not reading the Times. They're not going to the Guardian or anything like that. They're just taking the Kool-Aid of the people they support, and they're not using their own brains. Which that's how I feel. I mean, does that play a part? You might have a better spin than my overgeneralized opinion.
The New York Times has been looking at the influence of TikTok and the algorithms on the news feeds. And what happens, and we all know this, if you go on Facebook, any of the social media, once you put one thing into a search, you're inundated, not just with ads, but with informationals targeting you. So what the concern is that different people with different perspectives are just getting fed different things because of the algorithm. So that, Eric, you called the disunited states. Maybe it's the dis news feed, but if you are a Biden supporter, if you're a progressive, TikTok sends you videos aligned with that. But if you're a Trump supporter, TikTok sends you only videos that will express a Trumpian point of view. And that's a real concern.
Bob was asking how much ignorance has to do with this. I'm wondering how much this has to do with apathy. People just, there's been no counter attack against Trump. I mean, legally, yeah, he's got 91 indictments against him, but he's still running. He's still in the lead. And I'm wondering how much of that is caused by public apathy.
That's a real concern.
I agree with you, Ray. Yeah.
It's apathy is one part of it. I read an interesting article. I'm not sure it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, but I suspect it was the Times because I've got more of their stuff coming into my inbox than the Washington Post. This guy did a profile on Trump supporters, and he prefaced it with the fact that he's been following Trump supporters since 2016. And the headline of the piece was something to the effect of, in a democracy, you're not really ready for an autocrat, question mark. These people are. That was the headline of the opinion piece. And what he was saying was, it's not that they are apathetic, it's that they are hungry for an easy strongman solution, which you were alluding to about Mussolini and Hitler in the 30s in Europe. What he's saying is, here in America, and I wanted to broaden this discussion to other countries, but since we're here, let's stay here. Here in America, there are people, all races, all religions, even though a lot of them tend to be white evangelicals, who are buying into, I alone can solve this. They listen to him, says, I will solve the Mideast war. You elect me, I'll have a deal that'll fix the Hamas-Israel war, nothing flat. I'm the guy who can stand up to Vladimir Putin. I take no nonsense from China. And they actually, from 2016 onwards, have bought into his strongman, quote, charismatic sales pitch. And the bottom line is, we raise our shoulders, we give these expressions of, what kind of stupidity is this? He says, beyond that, it's another whole aspect of what people are missing and want to get back. They think Biden is weak and Trump is strong, not because anything specific, but Trump's words. He says Biden is weak, so they echo what he says. All right. And of course, if Biden slips and falls and Trump says, oh yeah, he can't put two words together and he's falling down all the time, Biden is weak. That image locks in. He says, I'm the strong guy and I'm the guy who can fix it. And yeah, he's a strong guy. We don't like exactly what he says all the time, but he's a man of his word, blah, blah, blah. And this is the driving mantra for all these people. And he gave names of people that he interviewed between 2016 through to 2023. And they're Black people, they're Christian white people, they're disaffected workers. It's all in the fact that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and they want somebody who says they can fix it and projects the image of Mr. Fix It. And I read that article and I was totally flabbergasted. Knowing what I know from all the stuff that I have watched this guy say and do, and watch his track record of not being able to deliver, they still think he's a great businessman that can run the country like a business. The MF who has been bankrupted a gazillion times, who doesn't know up from down when it comes to finances, because he says, I'm a great genius financially. They buy it and they buy into that. And it's all his charismatic me, I approach. It was flabbergasting to me, but it was eye-opening to me, because we've been here on Media Watch talking for years. How can these people fall for this nonsense? This guy had the best explanation I have read so far.
I was at an event and I was sitting next to a well-educated guy, a doctor with accolades and multiple degrees, and he was giving me the whole spiel about how only Trump can do this. Only Trump has the qualification. And I'm sitting there not wanting to break up the event that I was at, but I mean, this was a really smart guy, and he was just drinking the Kool-Aid. And and flabbergasted is the right word for that moment with me and this guy.
I'd like to support something that Ray said about the problem of empathy. So in 2016, Trump had approximately 62 million votes. In 2020, Trump had 74 million votes. He got 12 million more votes in 2020 than he had in 2016. The difference was Biden had 81 million votes in 2020. In the 2020 election, Biden and the Democrats were able to convince the American people that Trump was a threat. So even though Trump was able to rally his supporters and use incumbency, the Democrats were able to pull voters into the election. And what the polls are showing that so far in 2024, the Democrats have been unable to engender that kind of enthusiasm, while at least in Iowa, Trump has been able to. No, we don't know what's going to happen
Yeah.
over the next 11 months. But Ray's point is that if the voters are stay home, Trump will be
Apathetic.
elected.
Yeah, my son sent us, his sisters and me, a couple of interesting text messages. But one of it was some political prognosticator who was asked on the spot, what are your predictions for the 2024 presidential election if Trump is on the ballot? And the upshot, downshot, however you want to phrase it, was this guy was totally horrified about the fact that he was going to have to say, as far as he was concerned, based on all the signs he's been seeing, if Donald Trump is on the ballot for the Republicans, he's going to win the election. And so when I say that this democracy is at a crisis, if the insurrectionist that's going to be a dictator and tells you he's going to be a dictator is already locked in on a bunch of polls right now, and this could be because of the apathy that Ray was mentioning and that you're agreeing to, Alan, then this democracy is not going to be like Brazil, because Brazil beat back their insurrectionists after they replicated our coup attempt year after their election. They had the same thing like 2 days after our January 6th. They had a January coup attempt. And after that was over, the Brazilians said, no, we don't do that in this country. We're a democratic country. They're right-wing people, they're left-wing people. They all came together and said, that asshole has got to go, and we're doing this the way we always do it. The problem with us in this country is the Republicans, who had to run for their lives when our insurrectionists almost took over the Capitol, they went back in and voted to support the insurrectionist rioters. 146, if my memory serves me correctly. 146 Republicans voted not to actually certify Joe Biden's victory. And that's why this democracy that we're sitting in, attempted democracy, I've got to be correct about it, it's not a democracy. This attempted democracy is on its last legs. So
And just to keep us on pace, we have about 4.5 minutes left.
Yeah, I mentioned Brazil because it was such a phenomenal parallel of how two countries, two huge Western democracies, had similar events. And one was able to flip the script, flip the page and go, that's not us. We go back to rule of law. And the founding rule of law group are busy debating about whether an insurrection was an insurrection. The insurrectionist in chief, whether he's eligible to run again, when by law in our rule of law country, he's actually banned from running again. And they're still debating that stupid nonsense. So yeah, Salvador, I mentioned earlier because, as Alan said, they had a regular election. And then the guy got elected to office and realized that a whole bunch of gang members were running his country. And he just threw all the rule of law stuff out the window and just started locking them up left and right. Threw them in jail. If he had a tattoo, you're going to jail because you're a gang member, because you have that tattoo because you're a gang member. And you gang members are messing with our country, you're going to jail. No due process, no nothing. His country says, yeah, fine, that's what it takes. Boom. I don't subscribe to that, but that's where democracies seem to be. Ecuador, guy just came to power, had an election. Gangs about to take over his country, calls out the military, says rule of law, martial law, throw him in jail, etc., etc., etc. Look, if you can't run a country democratically with the rule of law because your base is apathetic, don't care, or things are so dire, you might have to suspend your rule of law But the fact that you suspend it don't mean you throw it out.
Okay, but Eric,
So
that's
that's
not
a
happening
problem.
here.
Go ahead,
See,
Alan.
that's not happening here. We don't have gangs taking over and drug gangs. The United States crime is on a decline over during the Biden administration. The economy is strong. So those kind of justifications don't wash. But one of the things that I look at as an historian is the word illiberal democracy is a relatively new one. It started being bounced around in the 1990s. But the United States has always, as you pointed out, been an illiberal democracy. You know, it was built on the enslavement of Africans so that there was democracy for whites, but enslavement for Africans.
And they took the land of the native people to build their country.
The native people. After the Civil War, what you have in the South is a resurrected Confederacy, and the Klan stripped away all the rights that blacks were promised after the war. In the 1920s, they turned on immigrants, primarily Jews and Italians, and they passed laws to keep them out of the country because they could never be assimilated.
And then they passed laws to keep the Chinese out. I think the first anti-ethnic law was against the Chinese.
1882. So there's always been this undercurrent in the United States of democracy for the white majority, but it has been at the expense of blacks, Asians, and Southern and Eastern Europeans, Jews and Italians. So that this kind of attitude where Trump is saying that we're being invaded from the South by Latinos, that washes because there's always been that element in the United States.
Okay, and we have about 45 seconds.
Hey, Raymond, one last thing. What do you think going to happen in Iowa?
What do I think is going to happen in Iowa? I think Trump's going to be on the ballot.
Well, we know Trump's probably going to win in Iowa.
I thought this guy could never get elected in the first place. I'm still reeling from that because I don't know what country I'm in anymore. But that's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. It's
Country's
going to be Trump all the way for the Republicans.
And by the time they realize what a fake and phony he is, it's going to be too damn late, and they're going to be kissing their asses goodbye.
Okay. With that, that's the last word. This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
Alan Singer.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And folks, we'll catch you the next time. Stay safe.